Hey guys, Thomas the Jr. here, aka Mustached, and I'm here to review the movie Sonic the Hedgehog 2. If you end up enjoying this full movie review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head over to my Discord, second to my Patreon, third to my PayPal. Any donations are greatly appreciated and help support me and the channel. With shilling out of the way, I'll remind you at the end of the review of those things, and with that out of the way, let's talk about Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Now, before moving into the plot, I do want to go over the first Sonic the Hedgehog movie a little bit, in regards to the thing. So, of course, when the trailer of the first movie came out, the design was horrible, it was heavily criticized, and something unprecedented happened. The creators actually listened to the audience. That is so rare. It is so unbelievably rare that you actually have people who pay attention, who listen to the criticisms, hear them out, and actually, work on the material when things are criticized. I feel like that is the point of criticism, is when it is good and when you are getting it and you actually listen to the criticism and are able to achieve a better made movie. I feel like you have accomplished listening to criticism, and I feel like that is so rare in movies or in media in general. It is just so worth pointing out once again. I really appreciate the first Sonic the Hedgehog movie for making that move. It's so, and I feel like to a degree it'll probably start being underappreciated, but I still appreciate it even during the second Sonic the Hedgehog 2 movie. Of course, they could just take the CGI of Sonic and sort of keep the sort of similar model and just apply it to Tails and Knuckles, so it's a lot easier for them, I am assuming. But there's obviously still the work to be done to make those. I'm not saying it's easy, I'm just saying it's slightly easier with the already well-made model in mind. So that's that slice of appreciating what they did in the first movie. And of course, I think my score was either a 7 or an 8 for the first movie. I really enjoyed it for what it was. And that brings me to my second point before moving into the plot of the second one, is the false claim that people have been making for quite a while on YouTube and other places that all video game movies are bad. I have long since debunked that, and I'm pretty sure if people are smart enough, if they look hard enough, you can find that that has been debunked for a while now. And if you don't believe me, then just watch Mortal Kombat, I think it's called Revenge of Scorpion. I think that's what it's called. I made a review of it. I'll have it in the link in the description so that you know what movie I'm referring to. That is a really good video game movie. It's really good. It's one of my favorite video game movies of all time right now. And if you're not gonna give credit to a animated video game movie, then a live action video game movie, well, just look to the first Sonic the Hedgehog movie. I mean, overall, I would say it received positive reviews and positive outlook ever since it actually made the changes. So you would still be wrong in that insight of all video game movies are bad, because again, that has already been debunked. That doesn't exist anymore. That has been false for a bit now. Alright, so now that those two things are out of the way, let's talk about Sonic the Hedgehog 2. So of course, I was really excited to see this movie, as again, I was pleasantly surprised from what the first movie had to offer. Now, on a brief statement, I will say, without going into spoilers, that this movie does feel like it has a few more conveniences than it does than the first movie. And I'm here to be as objective as possible, so I am going to point those out. I feel like that is my job, even though I barely get paid. I do get paid a little bit, but I don't get paid a lot. And again, if you do want to support me, I did say the shilling at the end of the beginning and will at the end. So, here for Sonic the Hedgehog 2, there are a few more conveniences, and there is a part of the movie that the side plot, I think, and every other reviewer is likely either have already said it by the time this has come out or will say it alongside with me, that the side plot of this movie isn't great and is unneeded and could have been used for something much greater. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we move through the plot. And what we can look forward to in a already confirmed Sonic the Hedgehog 3, so they're already running uphill, so here we go. Anyways, let's start from the beginning, though, before we get into all of that. So we actually start in the Mushroom Lands, and we see what Dr. Robotnik, once played again by Jim Carrey, is up to, as he's sort of narrating to himself in a rock stone, and how he hates this, what he has to drink there and concoct, and he's been there for, I want to say, about a year, or close to a year. He says day 243, so that's close-ish to a year. I think there's 300-something days in a year. I forget the exact amount of days, so pretty close to about a year's worth of time of being gone. As he's getting ready to escape, these three random figures who are clothed sort of try to attempt to stop him, and admittedly this little part of him being stopped is something I didn't see anyone or yet talk about, and I don't know if many other people are going to bring it up. I mean, I'm going off of just what I've seen so far, and yeah, so these three people who are unknown sort of attempt to take him out and fail, and this is what allows him to essentially come back. Or almost come back, that is, before Knuckles steps through this same portal. So Knuckles is introduced at the start of the gate of the movie. We then cut to Seattle, where we see Sonic, and we see what we saw in the trailer of him on the rooftop and rushing down to stop these criminals from stealing some money. Of course, he doesn't really do a grand job of it, letting off these bombs and all these explosions are going off behind them, and there are people who almost got, put to a little bit of a kerfuffle, let's say, at the very most. But he does avoid, Sonic does avoid the bigger, making the mess even messier, by dismantling the vehicle. And the cops come in, and he kind of does his old vigilante thing, and as he speeds along, as he moves back, he's looking at these documents, and he comes across the figure he saw in the first movie, Longclaw, and gets a little bit of a lore thing going on here that we'll come back around to. And we cut to him with Tom in the water. Or on a boat, I should say. Now, I will say that this scene is appreciated, whereas people will just say, oh, the human parts of the story are just all bad, and they'll say this in a brushing statement sort of way, and I don't feel that's necessarily true. Again, I'm trying to be as objective as possible, so I'm going to break these up into parts that I feel are good and parts that I feel are bad, and instead of just saying, the humans in this movie are bad, because I don't feel that's necessarily true. At least for this first segment and the last segment of the movie. Here, we have a pretty interesting discussion about how Sonic is still being reckless about what he's doing and how he's attempting to save the day. And we also confirm, which is a video game classic, that of course Sonic can't swim. That has long been established in the video games, and it was well put to be established here, because that does come into contact later on in the film. So that is both paying homage to what's in the video game, as well as setup for things that are later on in the movie. And I feel like that's a really good way of handling things you want to carry over from the game, is make it a part of the plot. I feel like that's the most effective way you can adapt something, if you will. So that's really good. When they're back, Sonic's already heading out, and Tom gets, unfortunately, a little bit of a fake out here. And they establish this as well, is that Sonic sees Tom as a friend and not as a dad. Oh, before I move on from the boat scene, is something else I do want to point out, sorry, because it is important. Because I did hear a criticism of one review that pointed out that this message has been said before in so many other films, and I'm going to say it, it's bad criticism. But here's why I know it's bad criticism. Just saying alone that a message has been done before in many other movies, I feel like is doing an injustice to the movie you are currently watching. Instead, what I am focused on and trying to be as objective as possible, my goal is to tell you if that particular theme or message has been executed well, not how many times it's been done. How many times a message has been done in any other movie is completely irrelevant. We're talking about Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and we're talking about how well the movie executes its current theme, and how it relates to the first movie. And in terms of that, it's good. It doesn't matter how many times it's been done before. That's irrelevant. We're talking about this movie. That's why I know that's a bad criticism, and I do feel like it's worth pointing out that I have heard that criticism made for other movies, and quite frankly, it's not a good criticism. It's never been a good criticism. You have to talk about the thing you are currently talking about, unless like my criticism was directly linked to the first movie, because this is a sequel. That makes it now connected to the first movie. Unless my criticism is that the theme is too close to what it was in the first movie, that would be a legit criticism, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the new the new theme or message that Sonic is still a bit reckless as trying to become this superhero. And that, the first movie was leading up to him becoming that hero, or, saving the day out of almost, the need of wanting to escape the Robotnik. So the need of being a superhero wasn't even that established. Now it is, so now the theme is he is a reckless hero. So it's continuing on the branching path of where Sonic was heading from the first movie. So again, the theme is well established, and it's really well handled. And I don't care how many other movies have done it. I am talking about this movie and how well it's executed here. Moving along swiftly, the next point of contention is that Sonic refers to Tom as a friend and not as a dad. This is also very relevant, although I do think that this second sort of secondary theme isn't as well executed, honestly. I feel like the amount of time they got to spend with each other, which was the boat scene, and then the ending scene and the middle scene is garbage regardless. I don't feel like it equated to he now sees him as a dad, and I don't feel like the emotional weight was there. And we'll talk about that more a little bit, or at the end of the review when I get to that third section. So yeah, as they're discussing this, Tom brings up what he was talking about, and he brings up his dad and how his dad taught him that thing about, when your time comes and all that great stuff. So Tom and his wife, I think I wrote her name somewhere in my notes, but I wrote his wife because his wife plays a less minor role in this movie, except at that one little part at the end, I feel like. So I do apologize for not listing her name in my notes, but I did just write her as the wife character in this. So I do apologize on that, but whatever. Anyway, so they're out of the movie for the time being. Meanwhile, since Sonic is home alone and he's young, he starts to make a mess of things. Here is where we see Tails land on Earth, which we saw at the end of the first movie, so we're catching up to that sequence. But when Tom calls, Sonic cleans up super fast, and all things are all good in the neighborhood. So Tom and his wife are hanging out with their friend, this other woman from the first movie. She's getting married, which is the side plot that is insignificant to this movie, and it is really, really bad, and we're going to get to that more later. So anyways, as we cut back to Sonic, we see a ring flick and the power outage goes out. This is where Robotnik and Knuckles enters the scene. Robotnik enters first and allows Knuckles to come and attack, and successfully does so on Sonic. This is where we see Knuckles catch Sonic even in his spin dash form, and catch him and plow him down into the ground. However, before Knuckles can do any further damage, potentially even kill Sonic, because he was doing a really good job so far, he gets hit by a car, and Tails is the one to pick up Sonic. Sonic has no clue who Tails is in this iteration. And thus, we get a little bit of lore coming from Tails. And admittedly, I do feel like the lore implications to come from Tails does make sense, but I feel like his character does lack a little bit here as well. I do share that criticism, and I feel like there's something you could have done, perhaps taken out the side plot with the wedding and replaced it with more Sonic and Tails interacting in a more buddy-buddy sort of way, because they are supposed to be best friends, and I don't feel like that connection is that well established here, unfortunately. It's a bit too fast, and I mean that in the bad way. Hold on, I got a little bit of my notes here, too far ahead. There we go. So, as they are trying to flee the scene, Knuckles actually has quite a bit of speed on himself, which Tails is also able to fly super fast, so this sort of tracks with, I guess, consistency within the Sonic world with these three. So after the lore talk, he drives the car with alongside Sonic, and Knuckles is almost at them, to drive it off the cliff and then proceed to fly off, leaving Knuckles sort of to hang there, and he's able to use his Knuckles his Knuckles as Knuckles to, hang on to the cliff. We then cut to his co-worker, who still works at the Mean Bean Machine, which is also a very vintage reference to a video game. And thus a ship lands, and when the stone guy learns of Robotnik's safety and whatnot, and he sends robots over to Robotnik, in which case this is the scenario when Robotnik indeed flosses, which they had Sonic do that in the first movie, so I guess they just wanted to have Robotnik do it in the second movie. I feel like it makes a little bit more sense for Sonic to do it, even though I don't really care for the whole memey old thing that's like already out of style. It's whatever. It's such a minor thing in the grand scheme of things. Anyways, so Sonic and Tails hide along with this other cop named Wade. This is where they get a closer look at that paper that that Sonic was carrying along, and get a message from Longclaw about this, and we get a lot more lore within this part of the movie. And Sonic is like, hey Tails, you already saved me, so that's cool enough, so why don't you tag along? That's literally like the amount of time that they get to like hang out. Anyways, so as Knuckles is tagging along with Robotnik, Stone shakes his hand, and the constant joke is that everybody gets wrecked by Knuckles just handshaking people. And then we, for whatever reason, start to cut to Tom getting destroyed in volleyball for some reason. It's, again, you could have cut this part out of the movie, or, more responsibly, I think you could have, again, cut the time he has off, as well as the time that he's doing the whole wedding, and transform that, or rather, have more time dedicated to Sonic and Tails just hanging out and becoming friends, instead of the friendship almost feeling a little bit like it's happening because of circumstance rather than it happening naturally. Anyways, so Tom also brings up the fact that he wishes that Sonic had friends, which, ironically enough, Tails is already hanging out with him, and they're already, again, in a more forced friendship sort of vibe. Speaking of, Tails shows off his tech, or at least one of his devices, this sort of language device, as they're in this sort of bar scenario, and Tails is trying to communicate with the local people there. And we have Knuckles, we cut back to him, and we see his lack of knowledge coming through in this movie, as he's trying to attempt to read the message, and he keeps saying ... out loud. And here's the thing about this, is that I feel like Knuckles is a bit of a tricky character to get down correctly. If you're talking about pure adaptation argument, I feel like a lot of what Knuckles is in this movie is accurate, to a degree. The whole warrior setup is great. Him being tracked by Eggman, that did happen in Sonic and Hedgehog 3, Sonic and Knuckles, so that does count. Him doing the ... thought thing, I feel like that's a bit closer to him when he was in Sonic Boom. However, I'm gonna say it, I think he's funnier in Sonic Boom. And I think the reason, in instances where he's funnier in Sonic Boom, at least when I laughed at Knuckles, it's whenever Knuckles says something extremely smart, because he's already portrayed as an idiot in that show. So the contrast between those two extremes makes the smart thing sound the funniest when he says it, because you don't expect him to say that. That is when Knuckles shines as a comedian in Sonic Boom. Here, I don't feel like they accomplished that. I feel like the whole ... thing just falls flat completely. I don't know. It was unnecessary. I'm just gonna leave it there. Anyway, back to Sonic and Tails. They get revealed where they are and challenged, and they challenge, instead of getting led to death, to this sort of dance-off. And at first, they're trying to attempt to dance to the current dance music that is playing, and they're not doing so particularly hot. However, Sonic sees the capability of changing the music and does so, and thus Sonic and Tails proceed to dance rather sporadically and well together all of a sudden, which leads them to win the dance-off. And again, I feel like that's really convenient that they just randomly learned how to dance super good, particularly Tails, in that one insta-second. That's one of those conveniences that I feel like you could have worked on to earn that dance little routine, if that is something you really wanted to do, because I feel like that scene is indicated for like a younger audience in particular. Like, haha, little Sonic and Tails dancing, yay! You know, like, I don't know, it almost feels like that, almost. Or like it feels like one of those things like they want to have on TikTok almost, or like the hot thing like people are going to try to imitate doing. I feel like that is the purpose of that scene, exclusively. So I feel like if they had to do it, at least try to earn it, not like just, again, as is, it's completely random, and it does technically get them the map back, because they do, Tails does remove it. And Tails, in a moment, he and Sonic have a discussion, where Tails was watching a portion of the first movie as he says he was watching it from his device, and how he looked up to Sonic, and how Sonic already says that he is his friend. Again, something you could have definitely worked on, and Tails goes in for that hug. And I feel like all of that could have been amplified by something happening before. And I'll get to that more on the wedding, because I feel like they could have taken out the wedding and inserted something there, but have it happen before this. So they could still have their crazy, weird TikTok fanatic thing that they want to accomplish for whatever reason. So yeah. Anyways, Tails flies Sonic over, and Tails goes into even more lore about the Chaos Emeralds. And he really goes into explaining it, I guess in case of people not knowing what the whole Emerald thing is from the original Sonic games. And also connecting it to the first movie's lore with the Long Claw. So, they use the map, they go to a puzzle location. However, Robotnik surrounds them, and Knuckles, of course, tags right along with them. And Sonic and Tails attempt to escape. This is where we see them moving toward the Arctic, by the way, or the snow area. The puzzle piece led them to, like, the snowy area. So, this is where we see in the trailer where Sonic is on the snowboard, because of course he's on a snowboard, because that's in the video games as well, just adapting it slightly differently, and sliding down as he's being attacked by all of these robots, and Tails is sort of flying up above somewhere, and Knuckles is giving chase after the fact, at which you hear the Winter Soldier line, which, okay, another reference. This movie managed to reference both DC and Marvel, so interesting move there. So anyways, after that, Knuckles comes in closer and closer and manages to make Sonic drop his rings. So, Tails once again stopping Knuckles for the second time in this movie. However, as Sonic is trying to get the MacGuffin or compass thingy to Tails, Robotnik is the one who catches the compass. And Knuckles makes an interesting note here that Sonic went towards Tails rather than go after them. And he kind of gives this look, and I really appreciate when the animation can tell you a lot about a character. And he's like, and that like that nod of like something's a little bit different here, does say something about the character of Knuckles, and I appreciate that little thing in those little moments that can tell you a lot about a character. And he doesn't really have to say it. He's already acknowledged Sonic, like, oh, well, he does technically also say it, though. He says, like, oh, he chose his friend over the ring, or whatever. So, there we go. And, unfortunately, this is where we get to the unnecessary... Excuse me. This is where we get the wedding scene, which nobody, I think, was invested in, so here we are. And the most unnecessary scene in the Sonic Hedgehog movie. This side plot has nothing to do with Sonic, and at the end of it, the most it accomplishes is literally from getting Sonic from the point that he's currently in to getting him to the point where Tom is. That is it. That is the entire point of the wedding scene. So you could have cut that out completely and missed absolutely nothing, because nothing this wedding provides is interesting, engaging. Yes, the character work has nothing to do with any of the relevant Sonic characters, and I'm including Tom in that. Tom is pulled away from having any significance in this movie, and having him sidelined to this side plot that has nothing to do with the Sonic movie. It's so unfortunate. And it goes on for a while, too, like a few minutes, with, like, there are these agents that are set up there because they suspect that, like, Tails and Sonic are gonna show up, so they're, like, planning it somehow. That doesn't even make sense, but okay. But the agents are, like, trying to get warned about Robotnik and the wife and, bride, Tom's wife, and the bride of the wedding, they escape, and they start attacking. Like, there's this whole thing, and the bride dealing with getting back with the groom, even though he's a cop. Like, so much of this shit is just so unnecessary. I'm kind of skimming through my notes to see when this ends. So, Sonic and Tails are able to pass through. They get caught. They are moved from location snow to location wedding area for convenience sake, which again, that's the only part of the movie. Meanwhile, Robotnik and Knuckles follow the compass and place it in its intended locale, and they get to that water area you see in the trailer, and they start to make their way into this temple. Hold on. So, Sonic, when he wakes up, of course, wants to go after Robotnik and Knuckles to fix what he thought he helped create, or allow to happen, essentially, by not being there and not being, sort of fumbling around and thus far in the movie. So, we see Max back at, Max. I want to say Wade. Wade storms into the Mean Bean machine at this point, I think. That's what happens here. And it's like a little scene between him and Stone that happens. It's more of a lead up to like what Stone is doing, I guess. And that's continuing to help Robotnik. Anyways, Sonic gets to the shoreline where he sees across the water, and of course Sonic can't swim. So he says one of the most iconic Sonic lines of all time, "Gotta go fast." And you know, people were probably already cheering when they said it, when they hear the line, because they know that Sonic's gonna say something like that. Of course he is. So yeah. So he speeds across the water, but just at the end tip he fumbles, but he manages to catch a luck as when he awakens, he's on land on the other end. So we see Robotnik and Knuckles going through the traps and kind of fumbling to get through. Sonic eventually catches up with his speed, of course, zooming past the traps. Robotnik is almost about to backstab Knuckles as they are approaching the Master Emerald, and this is where Sonic drops in. And of course, since the backstab wasn't complete, Sonic and Knuckles once again clash. However, this time around, Sonic is able to have Knuckles see the deception that is happening as Eggman is still trying to make contact with the Master Emerald, and does so. He does make contact with the Master Emerald. In the process of the area sinking, back underwater, Sonic gets trapped in the water with Knuckles. And he does the thing where he sucks in the air bubble, which is a reference, again, to the video game. And it makes a callback to something that was already established in the movie. So you did two things in one again. This is where you have Sonic drowning, but again, he does the heroic thing and saves Knuckles, because Knuckles was dropped first, and he was dropped beneath this pillar, and we see Sonic save Knuckles. And I feel like, again, that is really effective. So Knuckles is able to lift back up and see that Sonic wasn't able to swim back up on his own. So Knuckles manages to save Sonic. In which he returns something I think Knuckles says to him earlier in the movie, but I forgot what the exact line is. And this is where Sonic and Knuckles have their extended moment of both of them realizing that both of their sides, they were relatively young in their backflashes each, and they both lost from their sides, and, you know, they both see that, and you can see it again through their expressions as they both explained. You know, Sonic talks about how he lost as well. He lost everything on that same day that the war happened between the Knuckles clan and the Bird clan. So Tails flies in using the iconic airplane that I guess he just takes instead of builds, which okay. Because they had no time to set that up. Again, that scene could have been the scene where Sonic and Tails are communicating. That could have solved the entire problem. Instead of just having him have the plane, have him building the plane, and then have Sonic dancing in the background, like as he's chilling, hanging out with Sonic, and then Tails is like, "Oh, that's cool, can you teach me how to dance?" Setting up the dance routine. I fixed that part of the movie for you, writers. Like, how hard is that? How hard is that to establish? You have your cool little dance moment, and you get to set it up with some deeper lore with Tails and how he builds the plane, instead of having the plane fly across the wedding and then he suddenly just has it. Like, how cheap is that? When you could have built that up and have more time with Sonic and Tails, and have, again, Tails building the plane, Sonic being a little bit bored, so he's like dancing or whatever. And again, having that set up and paid off. So there you go. I made your movie better. For you. There you go. Anyway, that got me lost in my notes as I was on a roll there. So, Sonic extends his hand to Knuckles, they shake, and of course the joke of Knuckles being super handshaky pain returns once more. We see Wade and Stone having their moment, and Robotnik returns to Stone and in his new form. Robotnik, now back at the main city, uses his newfound power to sort of utilize and suck in all these metal parts, and you see it in the trailer, this huge tornado thing that's forming, that's ripping apart helicopters and all these other metal things. So we see Sonic and Tails flying with Knuckles, which I didn't know happened, because Knuckles apparently immediately sort of bomb dived backwards to like go on foot from there. And thus, the thing that contrapts from Robotnik is the giant Dr. Robotnik robot. Vintage Robotnik move right there, by the way. So, nice touch on that, I suppose. So, yeah, Knuckles proceeds to run from the ground. Tails, helicopter, his helicopter, gets hit, and he spirals out of control. Both of them meeting up with Knuckles once more, and the trio sinks up once again on the ground. Sonic knows that he can act as bait, as he knows that Robotnik would want to end off Sonic once and for all, so he claims that he's going to go off as bait. Meanwhile, Tom and his wife come back into the picture as they're taking a truck, and they get to save Sonic for a little bit at some point here at the final segment of the movie. So, Tails manages, with Knuckles alongside, to get inside the mechanized Robotnik. Tails attempting to use his clones again, which again was already established from the dance scene, so it's actually one of the other only reasons why that scene exists, which again could have be even more well established if you had that other scene that I talked about, that you could have had but didn't. With Tails actually building the plane and Sonic perhaps doing some bored dancing or whatever. So, missed opportunity again. Anyway, so Tails still gets zapped by the multiple electrical things that Robotnik's able to cast out of himself, and it's Knuckles who actually gets the big hit on Robotnik. This causes enough tension within for Sonic to start to struggle to get toward the Emerald. He's not able to run as super fast because he got injured getting to this point, spiraling from the helicopter, so he's not able to run. So the potential for tension is put on this moment, where we see the wife and Tom barely able to move in with the car and grab Sonic with the Emerald, even though the car is hit to a degree. All the family is fine after getting hit from the car crash. And when they land, they're sort of hidden behind the car. The main Master Emerald shatters, and from the shattering of it, is hidden within it the 7 smaller emeralds. Now, that's an interesting take, I suppose, having the 7 emeralds be stocked inside the Master Emerald. It's not how it usually is, from my recollection, but I suppose that was a different aspect instead of having them do a 7 emerald hunt throughout the entire movie, because that would have been like a Scott Pilgrim thing to do, instead of 7 evil X's going after the 7 Chaos Emeralds. And I suppose they could have made that work, but they decided to do this. I guess that's okay. It's a bit convenient as well, undeniably so, to have already the 7 emeralds just there. The 7 emeralds, once Sonic and the family think that they're done, they start to spin around. They're already close to Sonic, so Sonic is the closest source to the emeralds, so they spin around and they just insert themselves into Sonic as they say their goodbyes and loves. The 7 emeralds head inside of him, and of course, he turns into Super Sonic. And thus, he is able to make the final blows to destroy this mechanized Dr. Robotnik machine once and for all. And Robotnik falls in the process, and where he remains is to be unknown. As he heads off the emeralds back into the air once he's put back in his form, and as Tom and the wife see this, and as everyone else sees this, Sonic says that he still feels like he has a lot of growing up to do. And I do want to point that out because of a particular reason, and I did hear this from one other review before, as I'm putting this review together myself. And that the case being that Sonic saying this doesn't make any sense, and I think it absolutely does, and I'm going to explain why. So, the person opts in for the choice of saying that Sonic doesn't learn anything, therefore he doesn't grow as a character. But that argument couldn't be more false, and I'm going to explain why I think it absolutely works, and why what we are seeing is an already established and moved character beyond that. Now, Sonic is not only young, but he's a little bit of an airhead, undeniably so. He's not the smartest character in the world. I mean, he's cocky, he's arrogant. Smart is not a word I would use to describe Sonic. So, an introspect onto himself is something I don't think Sonic would recognize immediately, as young as he's portrayed in these movies. When he is making, cleaning his mistakes, as he likes to put it, he's not recognizing that him helping Tails in that one moment and then him helping Knuckles is him growing up. That is the growth. But he is not seeing it as such. He is seeing it as him cleaning up his mess. But he doesn't recognize that as, that is the change, though. That is him growing up. And I do feel like a lot of times in real life, as well, just to compare it to real life for a moment, I think when we, in a more general sense, when we tend to accomplish something or even grow or change, it's a lot harder for us as individuals to see that change or to see that growth ourselves. It usually, more oftentimes than not, takes someone else pointing it out to us rather than us see it ourselves. And I feel like that is really a great opportunity for Sonic to say that line, because it fits. It fits for him in particular in this moment, because we can see the growth, but he doesn't, because he's seeing something else, or he's interpreting it as something else, as cleaning up the mess, as from his point of view. But from our point of view, as the audience's point of view, he has gone through the change, and he has grown into a better superhero for it, because of these events in this movie. So, after his declaration of not learned anything, the trio makes a promise that they are going to be the 3 to protect the world. We then cuts to some baseball, where they attempt to have Knuckles have another stupid moment for whatever reason. And, to cut it all off, Sonic calls Tom his dad. As I mentioned earlier, I do feel like that was a little bit too early for this moment. Again, I feel like if they wanted Tom to have a continued great character from the first movie, I mean, he was good in the first movie, I'm not gonna say that it isn't, but here in the second movie, it does feel like they tried to hold him back and move him to a unnecessary side plot, so it does feel like this whole Sonic calling him his dad does kind of feel a little bit forced in this moment, unfortunately, and I think they could have had it work. I think they should have held on to that, actually, because of there's so little interaction between Tom and Sonic in this movie. Much as I would agree that there's little Sonic and Tails interaction in this movie. And honestly, if I were to prefer the choice, I'm obviously going to choose Sonic and Tails. That's an easy given. Again, I'd rather have the flying scene of Tails building the plane, and he's just building it because, of course he is. And maybe Sonic's asking about it while he's doing his little practice dance. Again, a really good potential setup for the dancing scene. Again, if you're going to have that scene, which I guess, whatever, I don't even really care. And thus, as we roll up to the credits, and the credits are nice as well, I will say that on top of it, because they do the whole 2D look and they have some other 3D sort of movements within it. It looks really nice. We actually do get an after-credit sequence to this movie as well, because the third movie is already confirmed. It was also on YouTube, so that's extremely unfortunate. But yes, this movie did confirm Shadow the Hedgehog. Now, that's a very interesting choice. And we'll talk about it after I give this movie its score. So there are a few more conveniences in Sonic the Hedgehog 2. So if I were to give it a proper score, objectively, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. That is to say that this movie is still good, but there's still a few too many conveniences that hold it back from being that solid 7 or even greater 8 out of 10. That is still to say that this movie is, surprisingly, a still surprisingly good video game sequel, making it, I think, the first video game sequel to be good, out of the ones I can think of off the top of my head, which is Mortal Kombat 2 was horrible, and then there was another sequel. Silent Hill 2 was another sequel that was really bad, and was there another sequel of a video game movie? Those are the two I can immediately think of that I'm like, ooh, those are really bad. So it's really good to see a video game sequel do good. So now the question is, can they do it a third time? Can they make the first ever successful video game trilogy? I think they absolutely could. I think they can knock this one out of the park. I think that they could make the third Sonic movie better than the first. And I think they could do something that I think is going to be a little bit hard, but I think if there's anyone who could pull it off, I have faith that they could do it. Now, there have been complaints even in the first movie that carried over even more so to this movie, and that's the human characters, that some of the human character interactions were a little bit iffy for a lot of people, but the Sonic stuff, the Sonic material is always the more enjoyable part. So, to address that issue, and have, balance out the human stuff with them introducing Shadow, is actually, ironically, introducing a human character, Maria. This is a Sonic-based character, one that Shadow is heavily involved with in one of the games. I forget which one. But I'm vaguely aware of Maria from Shadow's storyline. From my understanding is that Shadow, took care of her, and she was, bedridden with, something or other, and then she passes away. And this is the thing, is that if they imitate how closely Shadow is represented in most of his media, like Knuckles, and they don't vary him that much like Knuckles, I do think that this could work really well and offset it with the comedy that they could pull off in the third movie, and have that played off by, again, Sonic's goofy, or slightly less goofy antics. Maybe he's a little bit more serious because maybe he's starting to recognize that from this point, after the end of this movie, he does start to recognize that the things he was doing were heroic. Maybe he can start to recognize that and move onward and forward. So I do think that there's a lot of potential there, and I do think that contrasting that with Shadow's, again, as his earlier adaptations would see you have him being a very edgy, dark character and the brooding character, and I feel like that can really be offset by, again, contrasting that with Sonic's bright and honest, but over charismatic energy. And have Tails also be a little bit more of a character. Again, I feel like they could have did a little bit more there. So we have a effective trio here of Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails, and we have an antagonist of Shadow, and we still have the human characters that already exist, which are Tom and his wife, and then we can introduce Maria. Eggman, I'm not sure what they're doing with him since he kind of fell. I'm not really sure what the point of where he's going to end up. So yeah, that's going to be a wait and see on that one. But I feel like just from the amount of CGI characters we have now 4 of them. I do feel like there's going to be a natural inclination to slide a lot closer to just hanging out with the CGI characters interacting with each other. And I feel like what this second movie could have accomplished with Tom, if they were really dedicated to him being a character, was having him have more moments where, he's either concerned or like whatever, or, something. Give him something to do instead of the whole wedding thing. I feel like that really threw off the human characters into a location that they did not need to be in. Which is, again, what ultimately pushes this movie back to that 6 out of 10. Is that there are all these missed opportunities, but as an overall experience, it's still a good movie. So again, that's a 6 out of 10. And again, if they can pull off Shadow and make that successful, again, first successful video game trilogy. We'll wait and see. That is my full review, though, for Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and if you ended up enjoying it, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head over to my Discord, second to my Patreon, third to my PayPal. Any donations are greatly appreciated and help support me and the channel. And until next time, everyone, bye-bye.